how do you get the slang and the speech patterns right? You hang out at the edge of schoolyards?
I thought that arrest had been wiped off your record, John.
I hang out on the internet. That's where I hang out, and that's where I see language evolving fastest. I think that most of the time, most of the interesting evolution of language that's happening, particularly in America, is happening textually on the internet before it happens IRL. And so I think hanging out on the internet allows you to stay on the front lines, as it were. I will say that I didn't know how teens talked when I was a teen, and I don't know how they talk now. And but I also don't think that teenagers talk very much like Holden Caulfield, and he's done okay for himself. I think there's some kind of, if you can get the emotional truth, the slang feels authentic even if it isn't.
That's very well said. What about you, David? You want to follow that? Very well said.
I agree. I think also one of the fun things is we also make up slang all the time. It's just because it's so.
Give me some examples of slang you made up in the new book.
I made up bitch squealer. I was proud of bitch squealer. Yeah.
I just can't remember anything that I ever.
I still don't know what it means. It sounds bad.
It might now enter the Urban Dictionary.
Yeah, well, I used a word in my novel, An Abundance of Catherine, sitzpinkler, which means
Which means even your words get applause.
But it's a German word that means a man who sits to pee. And the Germans sort of use this as a slang for a wuss or someone who doesn't have the moral courage necessary to stand to pee. And yeah, that word has entered, at least in like my little neck of the woods in my neighborhood in Indianapolis. People say sitzpinkler all the time.
I'm a huge fan of shirtlifter, which is a derogatory term for gays in England. I don't understand what it means at all, but it's like, yeah, I use shirtlifter. I don't think there's anything inherently gay in that. If anything, it's like, it reminds me of Hooters, which is sort of not gay. but I've used that in a couple of books. So it's
nice, yeah.
Shirtlifter.
It's now time for you to lift your shirts.
Only me.
What about the way you structured the book in terms of, breaking off to email exchanges and then not the traditional blah, 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 he said or she said, but just, the colons. How'd you make that decision?
I mean, that was really me. Because in my chapter, my will is all lowercase. He can't really distinguish between an in-person conversation and an I am. Because that's really meant, he's grown up on the web, like that this is his form, his society, his community is not where he lives, it's in the virtual world. And so I know this is a shock to many people in the audience that sometimes when people communicate on the internet, they don't use capital letters. I know none of you would ever dream of doing that, you're all tip-top grammarians, but I thought that his self-image is entirely what he puts out there in IMs and on blogs and in comments. And so it made sense that if he were telling his story or if his narrative were being transcribed, it would be totally transcribed as if it were a long chat. And so his paragraphs don't have capital letters, and his conversations, again, when he's talking to somebody, he's thinking, oh, this is an in-person I am. It's sort of backwards from the way that I would approach it having grown up without IMs. So that was about him, and as the book progresses, he has to get out of that shell, because it's not a good shell to live in.
I agree.
What about the dialogue kind of shorthand?
Well, I mean, I didn't use much shorthand because I don't like to use it unless it's necessary, and David didn't use it because he was trying to reflect that there is no essential distinction for will between an I am and a real life conversation. Those are not qualitatively different. They're not, the level of interaction for him, particularly at the beginning of the novel, is the same. So I think that's what
You know what it was also to me was, it was almost an indication of lowercase Will's depression.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Which was actually a very serious subject that I thought you dealt with it in a very profound way without hitting us over the head with it. I mean, talk a little bit about that, you know, the struggle that lowercase Will had with depression, and what were you trying to do by giving him that affliction?
Yeah, I mean, again, absolutely. I think one of the reasons he's lowercase is also because he perceives himself as a lowercase person. But I really wanted to, with Will, I wanted to show somebody who he's been diagnosed, he's on medication, he has had depression for a while, known about it, and is just living with it. But it's not a big issue to him. It's just something he knows that he has to deal with. Because I think, especially in our literature, there have been a lot of books, and some of them quite wonderful books, about discovering it, being diagnosed with it, going to a center for it, beginning of treatment for it. But very rarely do we follow up and sort of show those characters 3 or 4 years later when it's just something they're living with. And I think my Will, that is essential to his being, that it is something he's grappling with it, and he has a sense of humor about it, and he's angry about it, but at the same time knows that the anger is sort of pointless because it's something he has to live with. So very much that was key to my conception of his character from the get-go.
Yeah. Yeah. And his relationship with his mother was also really interesting. Can you talk a little bit about the arc, the development of, because when we first meet lowercase Will, he doesn't talk to his mother, he's very shut off from her, and things change.
Yeah, like many teenagers, he and his mother are in the same boat. Dad left a while ago, we never really let him in, and I think it's really to show them very much in the same boat, like to use that metaphor, as time-worn as it is, that they're being battered on all sides, and there is a solidarity between them, even when he's sort of disparaging her. Hopefully, it's very clear, at least to me, that he still loves her very much and would do anything for her, and I think he has to articulate that a little bit more for himself as the story goes by, and I don't want to start giving anything away, but I think he's so much used to being solitary and used to her supporting him, that at some point he has to actually look down and see her supporting him, and I think that does happen in the book.
Yeah, and John, your Will has a very wonderful relationship with his parents, and I, as a parent myself, he actually listens to his parents when they tell him what he should study for college, where he should go to college.
Well, which is bad.
Is that a fairy tale?
No, I don't think it is a fairy tale. I think a lot of people listen to their parents when they tell them what they should study in college, but I think that's a mistake on the part of both the parents and the kids usually. Although, sometimes it's not. I looked down into the eyes of my infant son when he was 3 days old, and I said to him, "I hope you are a doctor." It's very hard not to have aspirations for your children. It's very hard. It is an act of, I think, you don't recognize those teenagers in the audience, but every single moment that your parents aren't telling you what to do, it is so hard for them. Because they do know. And they are right. Not all the time, but often. And it's extremely hard to let your kids make their own decisions, make their mistakes, go through life. That's very difficult, and I wanted to think about how difficult that is in a functional family. I wanted this to be a very functional family, but there's that. I don't think it's giving anything away to say that there's a moment in about maybe midway through the book where Will Grayson says to his dad, "What if I don't want to go to that program, that pre-med program at Northwestern?" And Will Grayson's dad says, "Well, then I won't love you anymore." Which is very narrowly based on my experience with my own parents, which was always, we love you very much, and as long as you work hard and stay ambitious and are extremely successful, we will continue to work hard. And I'm sure that they weren't being, sincere, but the message received.
This explains so much.
No, I always thought that, my dad said, you don't have to be the best at everything, but you have to be the best at what you do. Wow. And I don't know, I think that was helpful. It was, I needed some therapy, but